If we're done, I'll open the meeting to public commentary and inquiry. Please, anybody cares to be heard, please come forward.
What do I say first?
Your name and address, please. And your
Robert
address.
Drucker, 10 Maxine Drive.
Yes, sir. What are you doing?
Talk about Resolution 239. Committeewoman Wilson might not have been able to have the time to research facts, but I did. Between 2010 and 2017, there were roughly about 30,000 deaths every year from automobiles. In 2016, there were 63,000 deaths from opioid use. And according to the CDC, excessive alcohol use leads to 88,000 deaths per year. Those last two, that means there's more annual deaths from opioid use, currently in the crisis we have, and alcohol use than in the entirety of the Vietnam War from 1959 to 1974. I think you can imagine that marijuana usage has produced a death number that is so small as to be statistically insignificant. Now we can say that according to the ACLU, 22 million people are going to be using marijuana on a monthly basis, a number that's basically unchanged over time since it's been tracked. Now, not just the moral imperative to legalize it, but legalizing it could save $7.7 billion a year in not enforcing the law, and it would also generate a surplus of $2.4 billion annually if it was treated like alcohol and tobacco, which we've already covered, kills tens of thousands of people more a given year. 52% of all drug arrests are for marijuana. 7 million people have been arrested for marijuana between 2001 and 2010, the vast majority for personal possession, not trafficking in any way. And of course, we must talk about the racial component that Catherine Wilson already mentioned. This disproportionately affects black people, and at a 4-to-1 margin, they are arrested for the crime, even though black and white people use marijuana at the same rates. There is no evidence whatsoever that marijuana has any more negative impact on society or individuals than any of these other legal substances. And speaking personally and anecdotally, I was a marijuana user in my teenage years. And today, I manage a $25 million business for NBC Universal. I had no negative consequences whatsoever. The negative consequences of marijuana and the entire drug war speak for themselves. The drug war, after $1 trillion spent since the 1980s, has produced nothing by way of safety whatsoever. The countries that are leading on reducing drug usage, if you believe it's a moral negative, are doing so with treatment and legalization that destigmatizes it, brings people out of the shadows, and makes them get the help they need. It's been happening in Brazil, it's happened in Uruguay, it's happened in many countries around the world. This is a terrible resolution. It doesn't matter who else is approving it, whether it's the many shore towns that are approving laws like this or Parsippany. They are wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drucker. Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Well, this is the first I'm hearing of this, and it's so sad that, so I have absolutely nothing prepared.
Name and address, please, ma'am.
Yes, Rachel Linden, and I'm at 35 Buckley Hill Road. And I'm commenting on the same resolution to limit the use of marijuana. And let me preface this by saying, I tried it as a young person, it wasn't for me, okay? But I'm an herbalist, and there are other plants that I find extremely valuable, including the marijuana plant. We have over 200 cannabinoid receptor sites in the human body. Marijuana and cannabis have the opportunity to be extremely powerful healers, especially for people with cancer. Now, we're talking about smoking it, but to be honest with you, there are hundreds of other ways to get it into the system. And those people who need this, people who are on hospice, people who have terminal illness, people who are in pain, use the varieties that have been considered recreational. And don't use the varieties that are considered medical because they need an extreme product. I think that limiting this, especially for people in need, and criminalizing it as it's already standing is a sad missed opportunity to embrace people who are in their last stages, people who are battling with diseases, even young infants who use products that come from marijuana to mitigate seizures and mitigate tumors. And they're very, very effective. And sadly, the pharmaceutical industry, I think, may have a hand in making sure that these resolutions go through, because they would not like to see the recreational use limits taken away, or would not like to see them taken away, because prescription marijuana products and derivatives have become a whole new market. They're very expensive and not everybody can afford them. Whereas marijuana is, let's just face it, it's everywhere. And we're just trying to criminalize something that is all over the place. My neighbors use it, Tim, your neighbors use it, people in our neighborhood. We're making a crime out of something that's really silly, to be frank with you. And if we really were considering, wow, car accidents, and we really want to mitigate car accidents, which is a noble thing to say, we go after alcohol. We go after other things. I mean, I think it's silly to chase and criminalize something that grows naturally and that people use, especially people in critical conditions. And yet,
people, not to disagree with you, but people who take medical marijuana do not have THC, which is the hallucinogen, which is
I'm so sorry, sir. I hope you would take a medical marijuana course or an herbalism course. There's a beautiful program for 3 years you can take in New York City. It's full-time. And I would recommend you do that because you'll find that a certain amount of THC actually makes the active components in cannabis and in marijuana, that particular ingredient makes them more potent and more usable. It's a small amount, and it varies depending on what the need is. But I will say that it's ridiculous to use our resources to fight something that grows naturally and could be in your backyard without you even knowing about it.
Thank you very much for your comments, ma'am. Anyone else care to be heard?
Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. Question on Resolution 232-18, which is on the agenda, just says transfer of funds. Can you just elaborate, maybe some more clarity on what funds are being transferred, where, why, or?
Every November, the state of New Jersey allows you to move transfer. So we have like police overtime, they need additional money in police salaries, or they need it in police operating expenses. You're permitted to move it between November and December. So it's just minor things that have to be done with the budget document. It doesn't increase the budget, doesn't decrease the budget, just moves money from one account to another.
So so it doesn't go into like a general fund. You can actually allocate some from police to like sanitation to just.
Correct.
Okay.
Because if there's a shortage someplace, let's say we're putting money into vehicle maintenance because we had a number of issues. So we're taking money from gasoline, where we had an excess this year, we're putting into vehicle maintenance, where we needed some additional funds because of some repairs that had to be made to several of our fire trucks that were very expensive.
Okay, so cyclically this happens from just budgetary reasons.
If you look every November, we do.
Got it. Thank you very much. A question that maybe the mayor or who sits on the planning board committee, I know the Royal Farms proposal for up in the East Hanover corridor, I know it was originally at the planning board and then they sent it over to the Board of Adjustment to take a look at that application. Do you know, is that being heard this month, or has that been put on hold, or?
I know it was transferred from the planning board to the Board of Adjustment. I don't know what the schedule is.
Is that being
We're waiting on the application from the applicant to file. So we can schedule.
There's no application been filed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Question on the Menon Road access going into where the Colgate-Palmolive tract is going to be. So the township has taken over, I guess, the possession of that road. Is there any plans to do any work on that? Because it's a pretty narrow road. I can't imagine two emergency service vehicles passing each other sort of on that road. Are you going to widen it or do any work on that at all? Or?
Double sign.
The developer is going to widen that road and make it into a standard municipal road.
At what time frame? Like at the completion of the project, or is that scheduled?
Probably pretty soon.
Pretty soon? Thank you.
And putting a light on that corner too, traffic light. It will be a light.
Oh, there will be. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. Appreciate it. My last question is on the Honeywell, or the Hovnanian, what is now the Hovnanian Center. I noticed there's been a police car sort of parked, not a person staffing it, but sort of, I don't know if that's to calm traffic on Columbia Turnpike. I've also heard anecdotally that maybe there's already been some issues with vehicles broken into or some minor things on that track given the proximity to 24. So is that car there for any particular reason other than to calm traffic, or has there been any issues up there at that site that you're aware of?
There's been deaths from vehicles up there.
Deaths from vehicles?
Thefts.
Oh, thefts in the new development.
Correct.
Thank you. I see they've completed the work on the road into the golf club, Morris County Golf Club, off of Punch Bowl. And just to be clear, I know there was a 3-party agreement on that between Florham Park, the golf club, and us. We were just responsible in partnership with them from the, I see they've done the whole road up to the club. We just chipped in for sort of the piece from Mini Sink to Punch Bowl. Is that accurate?
There was a 3-party agreement, they each had an equal amount, we're paying 1/3, Washington Farm Park is paying 1/3, and the golf course is paying 1/3.
Is that 1/3 for the entire stretch of road up to, all the way to the golf club, or does it,
No.
our participation terminated
The
Mini
golf
Sink?
course also did additional work that they're paying for separately.
From Mini Sink up, so to speak?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to be heard? Go ahead, Mr. O'Reilly first.
James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way. I had heard, I guess rumors, that the part of the office buildings on the former Honeywell property that were to be constructed, I think, by Rockefeller Brothers, is not going forward, or is not being, or that Rockefeller Brothers does not participate. What is the status of that?
That was transferred about 2 years ago from Rockefeller Division to Honeywell.
And are they developing office space? Are there any leases being let? I mean, the buildings have not been built yet, right?
That is correct, and they're building the suit.
Building what?
When they have somebody that they wish to purchase it, they'll build it to their specifications. They'll build the suit.
And do you have any information on how the market is proceeding on that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
Hi, how are you? My name is Axel Daddario. I live at 10 Richland Court. A few questions regarding 239. Number one, Mayor, the intent, correct me if I'm wrong, the intent of the vote tonight is in regards to your concern for public safety, correct?
Within, yes.
Am I allowed to ask the gentleman who spoke first a question?
No.
No. Okay. Then I'll
Talk to you later. See you in the hall.
Diane Holland, 26 Northbridge Place. This has to do with 23818, selling surplus personal property, and I think you were discussing equipment, vehicles that have passed their useful life.
Correct.
Is that fully depreciated or beyond fully depreciated?
Beyond fully depreciated.
So things are 10, 15 years old or longer.
That's young.
Okay.
It's basically junk.
And you can get money for that?
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Peter Gallerstein, 38 Laurel Lane, Morristown, New Jersey. You know, I told myself when I started coming to these meetings, I didn't want to be one of these guys of, oh, here he is again. But here I am again. The last time I was here, Mayor, in your Cuso, I made a plea for you to sign not really a petition, but a statement of mayors against illegal guns, which have been signed by thousands of 1,000 municipalities across the country. And your answer to me, and I don't have the exact words, was that, well, it's so obvious, why we even bother with it. And since that time, there have been 11 people slaughtered at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. There have been 2 Afro-Americans gunned down the day before, and there's been at least 1 school shooting since then. And yet I come here and I hear you railing against marijuana. And it's as if you've been watching that movie Reefer Madness a few too many times. I feel that the use of guns and the killings just keep going on and on and on. And I just, for the life of me, cannot understand how you can just ignore this and say, oh, it's so obvious, why do I have to sign something? Well, I can tell you, if you want to protect these young men and that young child in the future, that controlling AK-47s or whatever they are and other violent arms in this country will be a lot more protective for them than writing a letter about banning the use of marijuana. And I am just so upset at this, you know, Peter and I are neighbors, and we've had many discussions, and I thank you for all you've done on this thing, but I find this just so unfeeling, and so ununderstanding. No, let me finish, okay? And so not understanding of what's going on that I am just astounded. And I know that there was an election yesterday, and I know that 2 months from now there'll be a different party in power, and there may be a different mayor, but I just don't understand it. I don't understand why your objection to this, and I truly, truly, truly wish you would do something, although it may be very small, but something to change this tide of violence against innocent people going to and from school, to and from business, to and from temples, churches. I can't understand it, and frankly, I can't forgive it.
How do you feel about us having special police in all of our schools?
I think it's a shame that we have to do that we have to spend over $1 million.
We do not spend it in the school system.
Yeah, I know. I'm on the school board, and I try to separate my there with what I am as a private citizen. But I think I'd much rather spend that money for education, not for having armed guards in the police. And frankly, I don't see what the connection is. Why does our paying for having armed guards in schools prevent the mayor of our town from signing this? Why is it either or? I just don't understand what the
Peter,
thought
I've
process is.
had over 100 people come to me and say, we are so grateful. I have 2 grandchildren in the schools, and they were happy that they have the ability not to have to worry as much, because having an armed guard in the school will deter, I think, some of the crazies.
Yeah, but Peter, how does that stop you from signing this? What is the, what, I don't understand why one precludes the other. Explain that to
It's
me.
perfectly obvious to me why.
Why?
I am totally against this violence, but me signing that piece of paper is not going to do one scintilla as to make the situation better.
Well, but will it make it one scintilla worse?
Peter.
Will it make it one scintilla worse?
We can tell.
Yeah, what about it, Matt?
Oh, can I see a copy of it?
Yeah, I've shown this before.
Yeah.
I believe that's something that gets filled out online.
It is.
It's something that gets filled out online, correct?
Or sent in, or faxed in.
I
I'm sorry, Peter, I feel like you're saying, well, we have armed guards in the schools, so therefore we shouldn't do this.
No, I just wanted to know what your feeling was about it, sir. I thought it was very
My
important.
feelings, I think I'm expressing myself rather well, to tell you the truth, but I don't understand why one precludes the other. What's the harm?
Anyone else care to be heard? Thank you, ma'am, please.
Samantha Rothman, 18 Normandy Parkway. I want to express my thanks to Dr. Gallerstein for his work and his consideration about speaking out about gun violence. I was at synagogue on Friday night, and we had many armed officers there, full K-9 unit, and I must say that I so appreciated them being there. Our synagogue does have an armed guard at all times when our children are there and when we pray. And it saddens me that our government is not doing more to curb gun violence, to examine gun violence, to allow the CDC to look into gun violence. However, that wasn't the reason that I was coming up here, but since it came up, I wanted to express my support for what he just articulated. The reason I'm here is I live on Normandy Parkway, which is a very historic street. I grew up there. We've owned a home there for over 30 years, and then my husband and I purchased a home there about 5 years ago. My family home is still there as well. And the amount of traffic on our street has become just unbearable, particularly semis. They are not allowed on our road. There's a weight limit on our road. And we've been very appreciative of the chief of police and his attention toward this matter, but it's not enough. And we desperately need a sidewalk. My children are wondering, when is the sidewalk coming? Because I keep telling them that it's gonna happen. My son was assigned a bus stop, the exact same bus stop I had when I was a kid down at Kenilworth. There is no way that I will let him walk to that bus stop, even though I walked to that bus stop for many years without a sidewalk. Times have changed in the township, and we need to strongly consider putting sidewalks in. It is a matter of public safety, and I know you don't want any of our children getting hurt. So I would encourage you to consider spending those valuable dollars on the lives of pedestrians and recreationists and cyclists that do use our very heavily trafficked street. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else care to be heard? Mr. Gorky.
Mark Jorky, 61 Alexandria Road. Thank you for taking the time to listen to everyone's comments tonight. I have a few questions. First, I'll start. I saw that there's a mayoral appointment tonight, so I was wondering, am I able to ask questions about the appointment, or will you provided any information about
We
it?
had a resignation from one of our boards, and this person was the first alternate, and he was moved up to that. I think his term lasts until the end of 2020.
Okay. And do we get any other background? Is that provided to the public, or any qualifications or anything
You
like
can
that?
certainly offer his volunteer application.
Okay. Thank you for that. I believe last month when we were here, we talked about the Collinsville Playground. I think there was something with a contract that was started this month, or a bid. Is there an update with that in regards to the installation of the equipment?
The bid is out.
And so then, I think we said next week we can expect things to be installed in the spring because of the bid.
The bid has to be awarded by the township committee once it's opened up at the end of the month. And then the township committee will be provided the information at the December meeting, and if appropriate, they'll award the contract. And once they award the contract, then the equipment can be installed, depending on the weather.
Typically, how long does that usually take?
For the installation,
No, the bid process.
we give them approximately 3 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
It all depends on what the bid is.
Appreciate that clarity. And then in regards to what many people were speaking about tonight, about 23918, I know it's a resolution and it comes before public comments and inquiry. Is there ever an exception for resolutions to allow public comment before it is passed?
There's never been since I've been here, and we've checked with many townships, and the process is the same.
And I know that you mentioned, this is kind of off of the Parsippany resolution, and I think I read that the Parsippany one was passed back in March. Is that correct?
It was in the springtime, I'm not sure.
Okay, so is there a reasoning why, if this is so important, why this was delayed until the day after the election, or in November? I'm just, it is an important issue, and I think people have
I think it's an
the
important issue.
feedback, but I'm just,
the election process really didn't factor into it.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with it.
no, I'm not accusing of anything. I'm just, I'm curious, if we knew it was an important thing, and you wanted to get passed, this happened back in March, we're now in November, I think there was an opportunity there to try to get more public input from residents, or perhaps have the police, the police chief testify in front of the committee, or provide some type of, opinion on the matter to educate the residents, or to provide any studies to the residents to back it up. I think more clarity would be a good thing for the residents. I'm not taking a side on the resolution or what have you, but I think it's an emotional issue. Makes them very, could be a divisive issue, but I just think, providing more time and clarity for folks to provide that input is an important thing, so. But thank you very much for the information. And then I think lastly, was there any, since it's going to the state, did we get any update or something that the state is getting closer to passing legislation on this?
We heard that it was going to be before the end of the year.
Okay. All right.
Whether passing it or, but that's what we heard.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Jeff Brazel, 1 Indian Head Road. First, I'd like to laud the troops for coming out tonight. I think the Boy Scouts, you guys picked a very interesting meeting to attend. And I hope you learned a lot tonight about governing the things that go on here. And I hope to see you back again. And you certainly earned your merit badge if you're getting one for tonight.
Yeah, we'll talk about it certainly, but apologize, we have to leave early for meeting up with the rest of the troops, so thank you for letting us be here. Or thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I just have one question. It's regarding the mayoral appointment that's coming up. Given the results of yesterday, with all due respect to everybody on the committee here, and the mayor, yourself, and all the time you put in, but given the change that's going to be occurring January 1st, I respectfully request that you not make this appointment tonight, allow the incoming body to make an appointment that's going to take the term through 2020. It's more than 2 years from this time, and it impacts the governing body going forward, and I think it's the appropriate thing to do. And again, I respectfully request, I know it's up to you, to not make that appointment tonight and let the incoming body make that decision.
I appreciate you saying that, sir, but this gentleman has been vetted. He is the first alternate, and it is a natural process. When the person who's there leaves, the next person takes that place with the term. So he'll be here until the end of 2020. Anyone else to be heard? If not, I'll take a motion to close the public session.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second, all in favor.
You have a second? All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay.